God told her, I want Christian women to rise up and have a voice. Welcome to Freedom Alive. She Leads America is a faith-based organization that strives to empower women from across the nation to use their voices in their areas of influence, and lives are being changed as a result. Reverend Liz Doyle started She Leads in 2019, and it continues to grow throughout the nation and even the world. Liz joins us on this program to share more. I'm blessed to again be joined by our co-host, Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. And Matt, Liz is another great example of what happens when one person is obedient to follow God's direction. As a result, many women now are stepping into their God-given callings with courage, unity, and clarity.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Liz in Washington, D.C. Earlier this year, and she's an amazing woman of faith that started this organization and leads this organization, not just here in America, and She Leads America, but also in other parts around the world. So this ministry, this movement of empowering women and recognizing women who have leadership that God is using is spreading throughout the entire world. And so she's an amazing person. Can't wait to have the interview with her and share what She Leads is about here in the United States and even around the world.
Amen. Amen. We cannot wait to bring it to you. Our Freedom Alert, brought to you by Liberty Counsel, is next.
They were forced to choose between their jobs and their faith. Liberty Counsel has now asked the U.S. Supreme Court to review a case regarding 3 New York healthcare workers who were fired for refusing to take the COVID shot. In 2021, New York enacted a law requiring healthcare employers to mandate that employees get the COVID shot. Yet no religious accommodations were allowed. New York threatened employers with fines and revoking their business license if they granted even one religious exemption. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals ignored Title VII's command for employers to reasonably accommodate religious beliefs and gave precedence to the New York state law. Liberty Counsel argues in the brief, federal law is not subservient to state law in that the Supreme Court can resolve this conflict to protect the religious rights of healthcare workers and, in fact, of all workers throughout the country.
Up next, Matt's interview with Liz Doyle.
I'm pleased to welcome a very special guest, Liz Doyle. She is the founder of She Leads America, an amazing ministry. Welcome to Freedom Alive, Liz.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to meet you and talk to you.
Well, good to be with you, of course. Before we talk about She Leads, not only in America, but also what's happening around the world with this great ministry, take us back to the time when you met your husband. How did you meet your husband?
Well, I had just graduated from high school in 1972, and I was called into the ministry. And so I felt the place the Lord wanted me to go to was the most dangerous place on the world at that time, which was Belfast, Northern Ireland, during the Troubles.
Yeah.
So I got on a plane, took my guitar. I went to that city, terrible, sad, bombed out place. And I felt the Lord say to me, take your guitar, go into the center of the city, and begin to sing and preach the gospel and lift my name up. So I got on the bus and I got into the area where you were all checked out because it was all cordoned off, the city. Asked the policeman where to go, and he said, well, there's a place out there that's been bombed out. It's called Corn Market, and it had a traffic island that I used as my stage. So I got up there, started singing and preaching the gospel. And one day when I was doing that, I looked out, and there's this handsome young man in the audience. And I heard the Lord speak to me and say, that's the man you're going to marry. And he left, and I thought, well, that's just my imagination. Anyway, I'm too young to get married. And when I was finished, I packed up, and as I was walking down one of the 5 different roads that lead to that place, I saw him run toward me, and he ran right past me. But I knew the Lord was saying, he's looking for you. And I wouldn't have just gone with any man during those days because you'd be kidnapped or anything. But because the Lord had spoken to me, I heard, sister, you're doing a great job. And I turned around, it was him. So he took me for a cup of coffee. I interrogated him to make sure that he knew Jesus and to find out what his life plan was. And he was in Bible college studying for the ministry. So I knew, click, that's the man for me. So a year later, we were married, and we started church planting then after Bible college in Scotland in the south of England for 25 years. So that's my story. And
that's amazing.
I'm so pleased. We've been married for 52 years now.
Wow, congratulations, Liz. Amazing story. How did you get the courage as an 18-year-old to travel to Belfast in the heart of all that war that was going on, all the bombings and the shootings and the killings, and go right into the midst of that and share the gospel?
At 14 is when I first came to know Christ, and I was so thrilled to know that my sins were forgiven and that he loved me. I just started preaching the gospel everywhere, and I saw lots of people come to know Christ. So by the time I was 17, I was seeking him where to go, and he just gave me the courage and the grace and that sort of, I don't know, swagger of a teenager. You know, I'm going to go there. And the Lord spoke to my parents, who were both fairly new Christians as well. And they were more brave than I was, really, to let me go and follow my calling. But I met an evangelist, and they hosted me. But, you know, I was sort of on my own. And I would go and sing with him in his crusades, and I would work a little bit in his office, but the rest of the time I was just out preaching by myself. And I just had the courage to do it. I gave my life to Christ. On the way over there, on the plane, I realized I could lose my life. And I said to the Lord, I said, I'm willing to give my life to you, but I don't want to do it unless it's going to have a purpose and meaning. And so we've always had that little agreement. I've just always served him in obscurity. I've been to many, many dangerous nations since then, and he has always protected me. And I've been able to do what he's wanted, and I haven't had fear. I've just known that he's looking after me.
Well, that's an amazing testimony. So how did She Leads, or now She Leads America for America, how did that ministry, She Leads America, of what you have been the founder, begin? What's the impetus? How did that come to you? And then we'll talk about what it does later. Okay,
yeah. I've been traveling. I've been to 55 different nations, mobilizing women since 1998. My husband and I had pastored in England for 25 years. I felt God call me in 96 to mobilize the women of the world to reach their nations for Christ. And through a series of really miraculous interventions, I found myself then in 55 different nations, mobilizing hundreds of thousands of women to reach their nations for Christ. But I'd never done anything here in the United States. We live in Michigan. We were based here in Michigan since 98, but I had never felt called to this nation. But then in January 2019, here in Michigan, we had elections, and the women that were voted into power were so vulgar and coarse just in their presentation. I didn't agree with their policies anyway, but the way that they behaved as women appalled me. And I work a lot with Muslim women as well as Christian women. And the women that were there that were voted in that were Muslim, they certainly didn't reflect the women I knew. And the other women didn't either. So that really upset me. I got on my knees. I said, Lord, these people, I don't want them to represent women in leadership, especially to my granddaughters. What are we going to do about it? And then he said to me clearly, he said, it's time for Christian women to rise up and have a voice. And then within the next week, he started to unfold what his plan was. And it would be that Christian women would be honored. No longer would the Jezebels in the nation get all the honor. It's time for Christian women to get honored. and that honor would come from their peers, but also would come from the government. It was sort of a Haman moment. And the Lord showed me that I would go to my state representative, who at that time was probably the only real practicing female Christian in the Michigan legislature. We now have 12, praise the Lord. But at that time, she was mine. And I went to her and I shared my vision. And so I said, would you be willing to represent Michigan to honor these Christian women here in this state, and that Michigan would honor them? And she said, I would love that. And then she said to me, what should we call it? I said, I have no idea. And she said, let's call it She Leads Michigan. And I said, oh, dear, I don't know about that. I mean, some of these evangelical people, they're not going to like the fact that women would actually lead anything. And she said, no, it's the Lord is saying she leads. Let's call it She Leads Michigan. So that's where it started, 2019. I didn't know anyone in Michigan. The Lord just began to, what we call, whisper people's names in my ear. And by September of that year, we had our first event. We had 80 women from 10 different sectors of society who were doing tremendous things in our state, honored by the state of Michigan through our state representative and by us. And that just started something that's now, there's no stopping it now.
So then it moved from She Leads Michigan to She Leads America on a national level. And now you also have locations in other states as well.
Yeah, we have leaders in 28 states. We've actually actively launched in 20. We're going to be launching in Wisconsin and Mississippi here in September before we have our annual gala in Washington, D.C. We've also launched in Pakistan and also in the United Kingdom out of Windsor Castle. And this year, the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, was our honored guest, and she actually conferred the honors on the women this year there in the UK.
That's amazing. I know Summer Ingram, who works with us at Liberty Counsel Action, had the pleasure and privilege of traveling with you to that She Leads UK event, and she has been really blessed by what she experienced in that event. So is that going to be called She Leads UK as well, like She Leads Pakistan?
Yep, that's She Leads UK. And I've been also talking to several other nations just recently. And so they'll all come under the She Leads the Nations banner. And it's fast what's happening. Women are picking this up, and it's empowering them, because honor brings validation, which brings courage. And that gives great empowerment to a lot of women that God has strategically placed in all sectors of society to actually have a voice and to start speaking up for common sense, start speaking up for responsible behavior, start speaking up for the gospel. And I'm so excited about what I'm seeing happening.
Now, you say that when you were talking about the name She Leads, some people might have a little heartburn over that, but it's She Leads Pakistan, of all places, in a Muslim country. That's pretty bold to have She Leads Pakistan in a Muslim-dominated country.
I know. When we first started talking about it, they were concerned about the name She Leads. I said, well, that's the name the Lord gave us. And you're all leaders. This is a leadership organization. So we have, top oncologists, top professors, sporting personalities that are Christians in Pakistan. And they're not acknowledged as they should be in these countries because they're Christians. But what power there is when we can acknowledge them, that the global community sees them. Even if their own communities don't recognize them, we see them. And I believe that's a big plus for women.
Before we come back to the United States, and I want to get more in details about how people can get involved in the United States and some of your upcoming events that you have throughout the year, let me just pause a little bit in Pakistan, and then I want to go to the UK. Can you share some highlights or stories that were meaningful to you in terms of your experience in Pakistan with She Leads?
Yes. I'm very familiar with Pakistan. I've been there several times in my in my previous ministry, doing evangelism and having a great time there. But what was wonderful, I'll tell you one great story. The woman who's leading, she leads Pakistan, is a friend of mine for many years. I met her when she was 25 years old at Amsterdam 2000 with Billy Graham. And we became friends, and now she's the leader. And one of the groups that we honored, or one group was they're young girls, and they're called the Power Sisters. And they're Commonwealth champions as power lifters, and they're just little things. They're not like big, bulky women, but they were so thrilled, these girls, because they have, their dad trains them. They just work out of their house, and they have become, international sensations, but they're not recognized. Particularly now, the young girls in Pakistan know them and follow them, but they're not necessarily recognized by the government. But they asked if, perhaps She Leads, they could be ambassadors for She Leads Pakistan as they travel around the world. So that was wonderful. They were so thrilled to be honored. Some amazing, oncologists. Miss Pakistan, one of the former Miss Pakistans is a Christian, and so we honored her.
Right?
So very, very prominent women that are being honored.
Now, in UK, you already mentioned some amazing personalities and leaders that were there. Tell us a little bit about some of the memorable moments in UK.
Well, one of the most memorable moments was obviously when the Duchess accepted to come and to present the honors to the women. I mean, of course, every single woman was so blessed, and she is so gracious and a remarkable woman herself. And, she is the wife of Queen Elizabeth's youngest son, Prince Edward. And the Lord had spoken to me. My husband and I were visiting Windsor Castle for our 50th wedding anniversary a year and a half ago. And the Lord said to me, I'm going to bring a revival here in St. George's Chapel. And he prompted me to ask the vicar there, the canon actually, that was on duty, if I could bring a delegation of She Leads America women over and meet with our fellow fellow Christian women who are in leadership there in the UK. And his face lit up and said, this would be wonderful. So that started the process. So we just have some notable women, the leading women in the pro-life arena, in Christian lawyers that are working for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, other women that are in business, and a lot of women that even have started banks, women that have come from Nigeria, other women like that, fabulous women. And just being together, seeing them being honored in such a way. One lady came to me who's a international famous architect. And she said, I have received so many honors in my life and awards. This is the most precious because I know this comes from Jesus.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible to be a part of this. I'm just thankful to God. It's taken on a life of its own.
I know you've had She Leads here in Washington, D.C., and I know Peggy Nienaber, who are Senior Vice President of our ministry, Faith and Liberty in D.C., has been a part of that operation, that event that you had there as well. What is happening? What do you see taking place in the United States, and how can people get involved?
Well, the first thing I just want to say, I'm so grateful to Liberty Counsel and Faith and Liberty. Peggy is the person who opened the door for us. She's the very first person I met in Washington, D.C.
Is that right?
Yeah, so she opened the doors and gave me direction. I had no idea what to do. And I am so grateful to the Lord. He's just led us so well. Our main focuses are dignity of women, ethnic harmony, and we call it bringing the world back to life. And so we have wonderful women like Dr. Alveda King, who's helping us with the ethnic harmony piece and obviously bringing the world back to life. Harris Faulkner, she's one of our newer members, and she's absolutely phenomenal in these different areas. We have so many great women. Congresswoman Lisa McClain is our legislative partner, and she's the one who enters these women's names into the congressional record. And it's just, it's amazing. So this year we're having our gala in October, and we will be having a congressional breakfast. We call it the Women on the Hill Appreciation Breakfast. And that's where Peggy has really come in to sponsor that and help us with that, where we honor our women that are serving in the legislature. And that's also now where we bring our 10 Christian women of distinction, and Lisa McClain presents them with their copies of the congressional record that they're entered in. And it's just been phenomenal, because a lot of the women that we have honored in the past 5 years are now, I was watching TV last night, and there's so many of them that have a voice on television. You know, different legislators that we've honored, other women in business. Riley Gaines, when I first met her, we honored her, and She Leads Tennessee, and she was right at the beginning of this whole endeavor. And wow, what a wonderful, amazing young spokeswoman she's become. And so it's just, you know, it's giving women a voice wherever they're at. We're not a conglomerate, we're a collaborative. So we're working, you know, we have all these women like Kathy Branzell from the National Day of Prayer. She's you know, I had a meeting one day, I said, how many people do you all represent? And like, millions. Peggy Nance, Concerned Women for America, Jolene Hodder from the Salvation Army. I mean, all these women, different prayer groups, different organizations, different businesses, entertainment, Olympic champions. These women are all in She Leads, and they all have a voice, and we've been strengthened by one another. And that's what I love about it. The other thing I see is when these women are honored, I see the next thing is they are promoted. We have women that are there in the White House that we honored in the past, but it's like the Lord wants to promote them, so he puts them in this group, this sisterhood of relationship and prayer to surround them as he elevates them and as he elevates their voice. So it's incredible.
I know Peggy Niedenhaber thinks so highly of you and your ministry, and is very pleased to be able to help in any way she can. Speaking about somebody who she leads, she is an amazing force in Washington, D.C., working with members of Congress and having Bible studies on a regular basis, virtually every day. Bible studies, discipleship meetings are taking place in the ministry center there at the Faith and Liberty office. So your ministry of recognizing women around the world, starting in Michigan, now the United States, other places, Pakistan, of all places, amazing, UK. The world is is the option for you. I mean, it's just amazing what you're doing to recognize women. How can somebody who's viewing this, they may be in a state where there's a She Leads, or they may not be, how can they get involved? And how can they perhaps maybe even become a leader of a She Leads in a state maybe that doesn't have a She Leads yet?
Well, the way that she would go about that is to contact us off of our website, which is sheleadsamerica.com. Just go to that website. You can see what's been going on, and that's a good way to reach out to us. Or they can, even better, if they contact us at sheleadsamerica@gmail.com, because then I get the email myself. I like to, meet people, as much as I can, get to know everybody. That's what I love about this. It's not big crowds of people. It's significant leadership that's come together that represent big crowds of people.
So it's kind of like Gideon's army, so to speak, in a way. You're getting the best of the best women leaders who themselves, you don't have to motivate, they're already motivated. You don't have to call, they're already called. and they already reach out to a large segment, or they have the influence to impact a large segment of society.
And that's what's been happening. And I just love this.
Well, I can tell you love it, and I can tell that the Lord's Spirit is just bubbling out of you. So thank you for what you're doing. And I know there's great things ahead because God has a great calling on you in this ministry she leads all over the world, in the United States, around the world, so many other places. Our guest is Liz Doyle. She's the founder of She Leads America, and you can go to sheleadsamerica.com, sheleadsamerica.com, or personally, sheleadsamerica@gmail.com. That would be the way to contact her. So Liz, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a guest on Freedom Alive.
Matt, I love how God works in the case of Liz Doyle. Just like Jesus honored women and gave them a voice, right? She comes out of this election in 2019 in Michigan, sees this, what she describes as this Jezebel spirit, right? Emerging in these leaders, these female leaders. And it turned her off so badly that she just got inspired and got involved. And look at the result. It's unbelievable.
In a similar way, Bev LaHaye, who founded Concerned Women for America, had the same thing happen to her. And that's why she founded Concerned Women for America, to represent women. When she saw on the TV women speaking about abortion, and she said, that doesn't represent me as a woman, and it doesn't represent most of the women that I know. And so Concerned Women for America was born. And it's the same thing that happened with She Leads. She's looking at these women that are misbehaving as women, if you will, in terms of how they come across. Politically, she disagreed with them anyway, but how they were so coarse in their actions. And she says, that doesn't represent women. How do we change that paradigm so that children and grandchildren don't grow up thinking that that's what a woman should be, and pattern themselves after that? And out of that comes this amazing ministry, She Leads Michigan, then She Leads America, then She Leads Pakistan, of all places,
it's Pakistan.
She Leads UK, and then now it's in multiple states around the country.
It really is a message for many of us, and for those watching the program. God told Liz, I want Christian women to rise up and have a voice. And how he ever came behind her and honored her obedience is just amazing. In closing, remember John 10, verse 27, which says, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. Our freedom is a gift from our Creator. We must never forget that and always protect it. Join us here next time. You'll hear victories as well as ways you can stand up for your priceless freedom. Join us again for Freedom Alive.